So, welcome back, folks, and good evening. My name is Jessica Ward, and I'm here to present or announce the folks that are joining us tonight. We have the amazing Josh Dunn, the director of the film Our Hearts Aren't Disabled that we just watched. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did and got a lot of great laughs and goosebumps at the same time. So thank you, Josh. You did great work. And I'd also like to introduce Mara Toombs, who is also a member of our Blue Nose Ability Arts and Film Festival Advisory or Artist Advisory Committee. So welcome to you both. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jess.
Oh.
Make sure, can people hear us who are here in the audience? Are we audible? Yeah? Josh is audible.
Want to just switch back and forth the mic? Do we have another handheld? Why don't you, do you want to use that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lapel mic if I can be heard. I just don't know if I'm coming through the speakers. I want to make sure people...
I don't think you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let them figure that out for a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I guess I have to ask you questions now?
Yeah, that's how it's going to work.
So Mara, how'd you get involved with this film?
Ooh. All right. Sweet. Okay.
Thank God you didn't have to answer that.
All right. Am I coming through the speakers now?
Oh.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Sweet. I'll relax. So, Josh, I thought maybe we would start by saying, checking in, because I want to know if anything has changed or any updates since the film, because I feel like we all feel like we've just spent some time with you, but it's been a minute since this film was shot, and I don't know how things going.
Things for me couldn't be better. I've been extremely fortunate. This film was literally finished on May 18th, in time to get it in for June. That got rescheduled to now, and I met my current girlfriend on May 22nd.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Do you feel like there was did any part of that have to do with the film? That experience of meeting her, was it sort of coincidental?
Thank God coincidental, because previous to that, I had met somebody who the film was ongoing at the time, but who had found me on the internet, and that was not a good experience.
Yeah. So the sort of natural meet cute of you and the person that is your current girlfriend has worked out better than someone who found you through reading about you or seeing your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Be careful of fans, folks. I mean, it's fun if you have them, but yeah, it could be scary.
Yeah. So I feel so grateful for getting a chance to watch this actually for the second time today, and I feel like different things came out of this work seeing it a second time today. And one of the things I was really feeling like was that you're on such a vulnerable journey in the film. You really put yourself out there. It was an intense time, and I'm wondering, when you watch it now, are there things you feel like you learn from seeing it, the finished product?
Well, I've never seen the film. How's it end? No, I'm just Josh, folks. I think this was all really clear to me. The only curve for me was the psychosis, which I had never had before, and I always think that's something that happens to other people, and then you're one of those people, right? So I think that it was a really good document of my, and a lot of people say, oh, well, why couldn't it be, after you met Sam, and then that was it's this happy ending in Hollywood, but that is not the reality for a lot of people, and it hasn't been my reality, and I needed the film to mark that portion of my life. I don't know if I answered your question sensibly, or...
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. You don't have to answer my questions. You just say whatever you want.
Wow.
But I liked what you said. I think that's interesting coming from the point of view of would it have been a more important or satisfying or what interesting conclusion if you had fallen in love at the end? I feel like you're right. People's experiences aren't all happy endings, and it's a more compelling picture of reality for you to just be in your experience of the movie is about a lot about the struggle around romance that you've experienced. And so it doesn't tie up in a bow.
Nor should it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of perhaps dangerous making yourself as vulnerable as I did, because I think it's so easy for people to say, "Oh, well, that guy is just mentally ill or whatever." And if that is the case, which I'm not saying it is, but if that is the case, I think it's a great deal more complicated than that. And that, psychosis was one thing, but aside from that, the sad feelings around lack of romance and stuff were existential, like as in terms of, being unhappy with my lot as opposed to having a clinical condition.
Right. And you talk about them being a persistent part of your experience over your, from teen into your adulthood, that you have a deep kind of poetic experience of your experience of being romantic, right? It seems like some people are varyingly affected by different things, and romance is a strong pull for you, it sounds like.
Absolutely. If by poetic you mean extremely painful, then I think I might be the best guy since Wordsworth or something.
If only the weight of impact of our poems was linked to how deeply we feel pain, you'd have a Pulitzer for sure, I'd say.
Yeah, a couple maybe.
Maybe. I don't even know if you get Pulitzers for poetry. I'm just making it up now.
I think you do.
Maybe.
I'm not sure I do, but a Booker Award or
some Governor General's commendation or something.
Yeah, put me in touch with those guys.
Do you think that? Did you worry when you were making this film that it was going to affect your romantic prospects in a negative way?
Yeah, right. Because I'm saying, hey, this whole lack of a situation might kill me, right? So like, when you say something that emphatic without hesitation, people might be like reticent to get involved with you in the sense of like, oh, well, what if this goes bad? Is this guy going to just like stick his head in the oven if it turns sideways? And again, I think it's more complicated than that. And I kind of look at it as like, remember when people first try to get a job and they say, oh, well, you got to have experience. And they didn't have any experience because they're first trying to get a job, right? So how am I going to get any experience if any of you assholes won't give me a job, right? So like, maybe if I had a chance, I would feel a great deal differently about it than I had felt leading up to that point, right?
Right.
I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but it's the best I can do right now.
Yeah, no, I get that. And it's funny, you mentioning that really brings up one point in the film that I found really challenging, actually, was you kind of, when I first saw it, and I feel like less the second time I watched it, but when I first saw the film, I was a little bit worried about some of the implications of this feeling of like, I don't know, even, feeling like I deserve a relationship. I wish people would give me more of a chance. I started kind of feels like it has a dangerous overlap with some feeling of entitlement. And all of us are equally deserving of these experiences. And also there's no promises, right? The world doesn't owe us anything in a sense. And so I was curious how you felt like looking at that theme in the movie after it's done, is like, how do we relate to this combination of people have to choose to want to be with us, and whether we have a disability or not, that there's no guarantees. And at the same time, I know that, disability stuff gets in the way. People's prejudices and misconceptions get in the way.
Yeah, it's a tricky wicket, right? Because obviously I'm not saying, it needs to be passed law that somebody should date me or that somebody, has to date me because I'm disabled. But I think where I was stuck, I know you grew up in the Buddhist community, and I think you did. I have a very dear friend, you probably know Torin.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Torin was my best buddy in high school, and him being Buddhist was always like saying, well, if you need something outside of yourself to be happy, then it can't really work. But if the reason and consistently the reason you're being rejected is because of your disability, then I think it is up to society to change what it means to be disabled. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's like it's not on the individual person's preferences, or it's on the bigger picture of what are the messages we're sending to people about what's possible. If people are asking questions like, I think Vicky says in the film, the question people ask her is like, can you have sex? And it's like, we really have so little information in our sex education, in the media, in terms of like what sex can mean, how to talk about sex with people, on how to work with our bodies in different ways. So people are just scared and frozen, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, usually it's sex for me is just myself with Saran wrap, right? So,
Josh.
TMI, sorry guys.
But you know what? You should, as you say that, I also feel like that was something Vicky Levac in this film, I think she's some of the parts that I get so excited when she comes on. She's so interesting, and her experience and capacity as a sex educator really comes out in small pieces in here when she's talking about our idea of what sex even is. You know, that we have this idea that it has to be some kind of heteronormative thing between a man and a woman, and it's the way we express ourselves in lots of different ways. And I think the fact that we're stuck in these constraints of thinking what it is to be intimate does get in the way of people feeling more comfortable exploring relationships across disability.
Absolutely, but I think if disabled folks were presented like in media, TV shows, so you're starting to see it change a bit. But I mean, it's hard to get, because even still, you still get the stereotypical like weird wheelchair villain, and like even I think the representation in Game of Thrones, Bran, I think he was like a dignified character and stuff. And same as Ivar from Vikings, he was, even though evil villain, still like a powerful character.
Like a hot villain.
But yeah, but their dicks didn't work. And they made that clear. And that might be the case for some, but that's not the case for all of us, right? So like we got to be careful around that kind of stuff, right? And to send one size doesn't fit all, and sex can be a whole spectrum of things from saran wrap to teddy bears or whatever.
That's a weird spectrum, Josh, but yeah, I think and there's some other stuff involves some human parts too.
And sorry, before I just want to say one thing too. So here's where I think it's like different, and I think where it needs to change most, because like you imagine like in today's time, I don't think you would see like if a black person was telling, hey, like I'm having a hard time dating, what should I do? And you were to tell them like, hey, I think you really need to date another black person. Like, I don't think that would fly, right? And even in the recent years, and there is a local singer-songwriter I won't speak to because she told me I'd have to date somebody with my condition, right? And so if you can't say it to other minorities, right, then that's where. And I mean, it's more nuanced and complicated because I know, like, I'm not going to have the trouble with the cops that, like, a black person would, right? But at the same time, I think people think it is still acceptable to say to someone with, like, similarly disabled to me, you need to find someone with your condition, like, and like conceivably, I'd be open to that if I were single and, like there was mutual connection on a lot of different levels and stuff. But I just think, I think people aren't really hip to that stuff, and it's time to get woke, as they say nowadays.
Yeah. I find sometimes when we're trying to, those kind of cross prejudice analogies can be so helpful for clarifying, like, oh, if I'm saying this in this context, how would it sound if I was relating to a different prejudice? Like, you wouldn't say this about race. Would you say this about disability? But I also think that this film really confronts another side of that coin, which is how do people with disabilities feel about dating other people with disabilities too? Because sometimes there's internalized ableism that comes up, and sometimes there's just very straightforward considerations. Like a lot of people mentioned in here, like, I've got something going on with my body that's really complicated. I don't know if it would work for me to have a relationship with someone else who needed care, for example. Of course. But sometimes I hear people saying that they feel like when you say I wouldn't date someone with a disability, it's coming from a place of more like internalized ableism or stuff. And I'm wondering, where you said that you thought for a long time you wouldn't date someone with a disability, but now you feel like if you were single, that wouldn't be the factor necessarily.
Yeah. And internalized like maybe, but like, again, if you were told, like, if you were Jewish and you were told all your life, well, like, oh, you can only date other Jews, right? Which, does happen sometimes, that kind of thinking, right? So it's kind of like, I didn't want to be like to feel like, okay, I have to date a disabled person because that's like my only option, you know? And then, and also like, I didn't know, I mean, I went to like Westmount School, which was for like, it was elementary, it was like kind of specifically for disabled kids all across the board, right? But like, otherwise than that though, like I only knew like a few disabled kids growing up. So like now with the internet, I can see like more disabled folks that are up to like more cool things than what I would have been aware of in limited, Halifax, 90s, early 2000s kind of scenario, right? So yeah.
Well, so I also think it's like the disability community can be small, and like you said, you've got you're also a really particular human being. So you need to find someone who fits you romantically. It's not going to be just within the pool necessarily of people within your small community within a small city. You want to really branch out to find someone who's a good fit for you in terms of your creativity and your personality. So that's a really limiting scenario. Someone saying you're going to have to date other people with your condition in this city where there's so few people anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I felt like just how weird I am. Like I might have to fly to Neptune and find some like icicle person or something.
Super hot icicle person, hopefully.
Yeah.
So what I was wondering was, the interviews you did in this were really compelling, and I was inspired by all of them. I mean, April and Vicky and various people that you talked to. That gentleman, I didn't know his name, who does the dance.
Oh, Frank. Yeah.
Frank, I really liked that interview with him. He seemed like such a tender person, and the dance was like made me just super inspired. I love that kind of dance. But I was wondering if you had any particular takeaway from the interviews that affected you in the way you see your situation.
I want to say one thing I want to say. Frankie was actually my babysitter. Actually, he was at Westmount School too when it was still a junior high, and he was in like grade 9. I was in grade 1, and he was so cool. And he taught like I never had any problems this way. So I was like, he said, Josh, like your body is yours, and if anybody like touches your body, it's not. He was the first person to ever tell me that. Oh, wow. So that was like really powerful, and such a great guy. But to answer your question, and I don't want to single her out so much, but I'm so happy for her because of what's happened recently. And that was with Vicky being in the seniors home. And I had never, except for that, 8-day stay in Abbey Lane, I had never been, well, in some surgeries as a kid, I guess, extended time in the hospital. But by my living situation had always been independent, my own apartment, or like, before that, living with my mom or whatever, right? So.
And just so in case people don't know as much, Vicky Levac was basically involuntarily institutionalized in that there weren't any other living situations available to her except for living in a senior's home. And during COVID, that has meant being on lockdown in a senior's home in a very intense way. Yeah.
And it was really like, cause like I had, when I started interviewing her, I had just like literally been like a month of the NS. I was still sick, like I wasn't better. Right. And like, if you see like the clips that it's me and her together, like I am on Neptune. Like I'm really struggling to do this. Right. And, at the time, because this was like pre-COVID times, like her attitude, at least to me, seemed to be like, people might think like I have to come and go like but no, I can set my own, like it seemed to be like independent. She seemed to be talking positive about it at that time. Uh-huh. So like I didn't want to like shed a negative light on that, but I felt really like the people in there were like so happy to see anybody like coming in, and mostly elderly, of course, because it's a seniors home. Right. And it just like, I just felt like, oh man, that must be like so hard. But that was my takeaway, and something that I hadn't really thought in depth about before the film. So that was probably my big, like the biggest learning thing for me, I guess.
Yeah, that's a situation I think a lot of us don't think about. I've learned a lot more about it from getting to know Vicky and watching her going on this journey of fighting for her independence. And now she's going to be moving into a more independent living situation, which is a really big success. But I think to actually go in there and see it is a real eye opener.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thinking about, when we talk about what it is to be having a romantic life, having to have a romantic life where you're, telling someone I think it was really wonderful that she was honest about how it works with the nurses and stuff, because we just don't think about that. And it is really, it's really pulling the veil away that actually, in a way, it's a pretty sex positive situation in many ways, even though it would be obviously much better for Vicky to be living independently. I love that at least she feels comfortable communicating with the nurses, like, this is what's happening now.
Yeah. And again, like I talk about the synopsis, like the perseverance, like it's really about making the best of your situation. Like even me, like I don't know if I'm going to be, or at that point, you know, I don't know how long I'm going to be around, but like I'm going like full tilt while I'm still alive, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And yeah, man, I mean, that broke my heart when you were saying you didn't know if you were going to make it. I feel like on the one hand, I'm really happy that you are in a situation now where you feel you have a really heartening love situation. And I also sort of the Buddhist and the friend in me wants to feel like you would have maybe more of an unconditional will to be here with us, because we're lucky to have you here in our scene.
That's sweet of you to say. I appreciate that.
I hope you stick around. Romance a non-dependent.
Right.
And I hope your romance sticks around.
Me too.
So,
yeah, and my poem's tomorrow at 7 p.m. and you'll see some other great ones, Elle Jones and Anna Kwan and a couple others, unless they've pulled out now and they make me look like an idiot for saying people aren't going to be here. But I have two new pieces that have never, and I actually address some of these concerns in the poem, so stay tuned, I guess.
Okay, good. Come back around if you want to check in with Josh's inner workings a bit more. So one thing I was wondering was if you have any other ideas for films.
No. And I'll tell you why. I am a writer and a performer, right? This like disability and dating, it needed to be in this medium because you need to show the disability, right? And the only other thing that I could think that would achieve this potentially would be like a theater show, right? And not everybody necessarily is, some do, but not everybody a theater background. So I wanted, instead of like writing some phony play, I wanted to capture people as they are, right? As authentic as possible. And it was just simply that film was I think the best medium to do that. I mean, and you know, like we talked about this a little bit in the last BAAFF meeting. You brought up about how, you know, I get these grants and the welfare gods like claw me back worse than if I were a waged worker, right? Somehow like this is like I'm a businessman or something, you know? So if another film were to take place, I would need a large budget and need to be paid sensibly. And it's not a medium I'm terribly comfortable in. So I mean, but if somebody wants to make it real easy for me and let me tell the truth, then, you know, we could talk. But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I understand it, just to sort of, if you don't mind me making this more clear, I think that was a really intense thing that happened where if you are on government assistance and then you get an arts grant, it's considered like you just got a bunch of money. And so you don't need your assistance. And so it can have terrible financial implications, which is a real problem for artists because obviously you don't get a grant from a film so that you can just go live large. It's the cost of making a film and it's supposed to, you know, cover a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and just in case people are wondering, and this is with assistance clawback, so I didn't, they gave me a little bit more because I'd embarrassed them in the papers and stuff, so like it came, but they still didn't give me what they should have if I were a waged worker. But I, like all things considered, I made like about $3,000 to do that, right? So like, you know, what are you gonna do with $3,000, right? That's like a little bit better than a month for like most working people, right?
Right.
So
yeah. No, it's no way to be living for sure in terms of. I mean, it's like a lot of artists. It's just. You gotta have a lot of passion.
I didn't know. So the wonderful singer that you heard, Arit Shimoni, she was my content editor as well, right? So we were like co-producers and directors. And the thing was I met her just across the street. She is a traveling musician who usually doesn't live anywhere and is literally just like traveling around the world playing songs. And you can check her out at aritshimoni.com. But
Wait a minute. How do you spell her name? Because I love that song.
Orit, first name, and then Shimoni.
Oh, great. Cool.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Now we're just the spelling part.
Yeah. So there's a little insight to that. So like, I didn't know her that great, and I couldn't pay all the money right away in case the thing didn't get done, right? So like, I had this money like just sitting in my account that I couldn't touch, right? And those welfare people, they can look in there anytime they want, right? Like they probably tell you, or they request you to provide the banks, but it's like, okay, guy, like I got this money, but this stuff is spoken for, right? So it was incredibly stressful.
Yeah. I know. I wish that, there was some kind of arts advocacy function within the government that could help you navigate that, because that seems like such a predictable trap in a way, considering how many artists live on the margins. And then when there is an opportunity to make art, it imperils their finances potentially.
Yeah.
So, okay, I was really liking your slogan that life is about getting paid, getting laid, and getting friends made. I think that it would be a great BAAFF t-shirt. And I was wondering if you have any other sort of, if a young person watched your film, is there anything you would hope that they would take from it?
Yeah, that for one, that's really important, because there is and we have these things, right? And like we have like described video and somebody signing and like access ramps. And look, man, that's awesome. Like people need that stuff. You know what I mean? But that's like, or even just like the bus stop theater, for instance. I had Claire on, who used to, on my podcast, used to run it. And I was like, well, what would you like to see change? And she's like, oh yeah, we got to make the theaters more accessible and stuff. It's like, no, I don't want to see like disabled folks just getting in as audience members, right? I want to see them be content creators and be thought of as like more than just pedestrian. So that's why this getting paid, getting laid, getting friends made. I mean, that slogan is important for anybody disabled or not. So I think when we stick to that, that shows how we're more human, like, or as human as everybody else, as opposed to like these different needs, and any kind of accessibility discussions really need to broadly look at those three things. And of course, right, you can't force somebody to be your friend or make whoopee, right? But the business side about like not getting your due professionally and the discrimination you might face. And hey, I'm not trying to say that everybody disabled is living in poverty. There are people doing well who are disabled too, but the link between poverty and disability is almost like unbreakable, right? So I mean, we have to examine those, and to me, those are more important than the other people might feel differently. I can't speak for every disabled person, obviously, but if we're not looking at those three things, we're not looking at accessibility the way it needs to be looked at.
I also think it's like a super hot disability slogan, which we don't have enough of.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of the money piece, something I learned from working with BAAFF that I think is just a simple thing is like talk about money early and often. Like too many people approach artists, and I have made this mistake myself, approaching an artist about a project and just talking about the project for a long time. And then the artist is kind of going, and you haven't said whether you're going to pay them or not. And then the artist has to go, and are you going to pay me for this? And you just feel terrible because you knew you were going to pay them, but you hadn't thought about how important it was to put that right up in the front.
Dal has pulled some similar shenanigans with me recently, and I think we might work something out, but I don't know, man. Like, it doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good.
No.
I want someone to come, and like now in my experience, and I say this to people who are working with artists, it's like call an artist and be like, I have $500 and I would be really inspired if you would come and work on this project. Like there's gonna be $1,000 at the end of the day, and let's work on this project about this. Are you interested? Like just put money at the front, because people are stressed out and not sure. And especially like you said, so many times people with disabilities are expected to come just because they care about the mission, that they aren't necessarily being told whether they're going to get paid as a professional to come and do their work.
Oh, yes. And, if like the person asking you to do it for free, like maybe they don't control the budget, but they make like 80 grand a year and I make like 10, like, what are you doing? Like, do you not think I'm professional? Okay. well, then don't ask me in the first place. That theme is all too common. And before we continue, just give BAAFF a big hand for paying all their artists.
Woohoo! I mean, it should come as a minimum, but it's pretty important. And it is a big BAAFF thing. Everybody gets paid. That's the rule. And I think it's super important. So I really appreciate you doing this, coming out tonight and talking to us, and also presenting this film for BAAFF for International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I'm so appreciative of people coming out tonight, and we're at our time. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Are we okay for a couple more minutes, or how do we need to cut off?
What say you? We can have a couple minutes, yeah.
The reason being is I just wanted to open. I
Josh
thank you
wanted
guys,
to see if the audience had
guys so much for coming, and we can't have too long of a thing. But if you wanna ask a couple of questions, I'm more than happy.
I have a mic, so I can jump up if anyone wants to raise their hand. Oh, you got a mic, sweet. Is there anyone out there that wanted to ask a question? Y'all better now.
Look, I've put you on the spot.
Something.
Well, we don't. Would you like to know where I got this ascot?
Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah, we got a question.
Okay, what's our question?
We didn't give them a lot of advance warning.
I have a question for you. So seeing as I dabble within the film industry myself, and I have a director sitting beside me as well, I was wondering for you, what was the most important messaging that the audience would receive by watching your film?
That's really good. To put it down into one nugget, eh? I think it's this. I think that dating when you are disabled, such as someone like me and Spencer, whatever it may be, is very, very hard, right? But it shouldn't be that fucking hard.
Yeah. Like, we can remove some of the attitudinal barriers that are really making it impossible, so we can get down to normal human stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think there needs to be some big changes there. And yeah, present it in like dignified positions. Even that Ibarn is not able to reproduce. He was a mean and gnarly villain. I don't know if people are familiar with that Vikings program, but this is we're getting there, but it's not there yet.
Oh, we've got another one over there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Josh.
Hey.
Hey, so let's take my mask down. So I really appreciate the film. I think it's pretty amazing and congratulate you on it. And I was curious, as an artist, what you're working on next and what are some of your themes that you're working with next?
Well, you might be particularly interested in it. I got 2 brand new poems coming. So those are happening. Still doing stand-up once in a while. It's not, there's a whole kind of problems with that and me going back a long time. But otherwise than that, if you can get in touch with them and help me convince them, I want to get separately both my grandmothers on my podcast. And I want to make to close out the year, I want to make a little spiritual proclamation.
Ooh.
Come out of the closet as a believer, perhaps, on my channel. And just what specifically that means to me.
Oh, this is getting very Oprah in here. We got Josh's spirituality coming into the mix. I want to mention what your podcast is because it's great.
Oh yeah.
Gimpin' Ain't Easy. And where can people hear Gimpin' Ain't Easy if they want to, Josh?
It used to be on a podcast platform, but they was charging us for that. And I've made I think I had some local sponsors one time. I've made about maybe $70 for the podcast. So that's like 27 episodes now. So it's all available on YouTube. So just like YouTube, Gimpin' Ain't Easy, and it's spelled a little funny, like there's no G on the end of Gimpin', and ain't doesn't have apostrophe, and easy is spelled with a Z, like Easy E.
I believe in you guys. You can find it.
Yeah, you can find it. Oh, and if you find some porn stuff, that is not me. I did do a porn once, but it wasn't released to the public. But a GIMP if in case you might be familiar with this or not, a GIMP is one of them bondage dudes, and he has like the leather mask with the zipper over the mouth on. And I ain't that kind of GIMP. So, but
Right.
if you find that, it's not me under that mask.
That's probably also not easy, but it is not your product.
Yeah.
No.
They get paid better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I believe that is our question. So I feel like we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Unless there was,
okay.
yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Thank you, Josh. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for coming out and having me. And thanks to BAAFF and the Mara for doing this, all the people in the film. And yeah, good night.
Good night.